From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Malacañang announced that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. left for Japan on Thursday afternoon to grace the opening of the Philippine Pavilion at the World Expo 2025 in Osaka and to hold business meetings. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the President is accompanied by a lean delegation. In a Palace press briefing, Castro said this is part of the administration's efforts to further boost tourism in the country. Apart from attending the expo, the chief executive is also slated to hold business meetings and spend time with the Filipino community in Japan. No further details on the possible meetings were made public. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III, and Education Secretary Sunny Angara were designated as government caretakers during the President's trip. President Marcos is expected to return to the country this weekend.
Ang pagpunta po ng Pangulo doon ay para po pasinayaan, puntahan at ipagmalaki ang pavilion ng Pilipinas sa nasabing World Expo sa Osaka 2025. Dahil ito po ay nagtatampok po ito ng mga, of course, yung mga mayayaman nating kultura at ang magaganda nating landscapes. At ito po ay isa sa parte para po mas lalong mapalawig natin ang turismo sa bansa. Maliban po dito ay magkakaroon po ng business meetings ang ating Pangulo. At magkakaroon din po ng ang oras po ay ilalaan niya para sa mga kababayan natin sa nasabing bansa. Ang pagkakasabi lamang po natin ay business meeting. So, yun lang po muna ang mabibigay kong detalye. Maliit lang po ang mga kasama. Maliit lang po yung delegado na kasama po ng Pangulo pa.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday visited the dialysis patients with chronic kidney disease or CKD at the National Kidney Transplant Institute or NKTI in Diliman, Quezon City. President Marcos's visit coincided with the launching of the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth's new benefits package for adult and pediatric post-kidney transplant patients. Upon arrival at the NKTI, the President greeted the CKD patients at the Hemodialysis Center and Hemodialysis Center Extension. The Chief Executive also checked on the post-kidney transplant patients. During the event, President Marcos announced the expanded Z benefit package of PhilHealth. In 2012, PhilHealth introduced the Z benefits package to cover medically and economically catastrophic conditions, including low-risk kidney transplantation for patients with CKD Stage 5. The package includes coverage for pre-transplant services, organ harvesting from a living donor, and the transplant procedure. PhilHealth developed a comprehensive benefit package for post-kidney transplantation, covering both adult and pediatric patients with Stage 5 CKD to lessen the financial burden, improve long-term health outcomes, and advance equitable access to quality health care. In line with the goals of universal health care, PhilHealth enhanced its benefits for members with CKD Stage 5 by expanding hemodialysis sessions from 90 to 156 at 6,350 pesos per session annually. PhilHealth also raised the Z benefit for coverage for kidney transplantation with a living organ donor to 1.045 million pesos and with a deceased organ donor to 2.146 million pesos. President Marcos said living kidney donors will also receive regular beneficial benefits from PhilHealth. Under the same post-kidney transplant services benefits, living donors will receive 1,900 pesos for every 6 months of laboratory testing and monitoring.
Nung nakaraan, ang sinasagot ng PhilHealth ay 144 sessions ng dialysis. Ngayon, ang sinasagot na ng PhilHealth is 156 sessions. At dati, meron pa rin binabayaran ng pasyente kapag nag-dialysis dahil may kulang pa, kailangan pa mag-pay out ang pasyente. Ngayon, hindi na. Tinaasan natin ang halaga ng coverage mula dati sa 4,000 piso. Ngayon ay ginawa natin 6,350 para sa kabuong benepisyo halos 1 milyon or 990,000 pesos lahat-lahat. Dilakhindihan natin coverage. Sumunod na noong 2024, ang coverage ng PhilHealth para sa kidney transplant ay 600,000. Ngayon, palalakihin na natin hanggang sa 2.1 million pesos na ang coverage para mabawasan ng mga... At sa unang pagkakataon, mapapatupad na natin mapapatupad na ng PhilHealth ang benefit package para tugunan ng gastusin para sa kidney transplant patients. Kasama yung immunosuppressive na medication, drug prophylaxis, antibiotics at iba pa. Meron din suporta para sa ating mga donor dahil sila din ay nauoperahan. Kaya kailangan din bantayan at tiyakin na sila ay nasa magandang kondisyon. At tapos bukod pa ron, hindi lang sa PhilHealth, pinarami pa namin ang listahan ng gamot para dito sa ating mga pasyente na VAT-free. Hindi na magbabayad ng buwis pagpasok upang maibaba natin ang presyo ng mga gamot.
Last month, PhilHealth paid 592 million pesos worth of claims to the NKTI from January 1st to May 21st, covering 161 million pesos for hemodialysis claims alone. One Filipino develops chronic kidney failure every hour, equating to around 120 new cases per million population annually based on the NKTI's estimate. The number of individuals undergoing dialysis treatment has reached 64,845 in 2023, a 22% increase from 53,296 logged in 2023. As of March 2025, data from the Philippine Renal Disease Registry of the Department of Health or DOH indicated that hypertensive nephrosclerosis accounted for 33.07% of kidney disease cases nationwide, followed by diabetic nephropathy at 30.04% and chronic glomerulonephritis at 12.2%. Cases of CKD in children increased from 144 in 2023 to 301 in 2024, registering a 3% hike based on the data from the NKTI.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Thursday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. reaffirmed his administration's push for digital transformation in Philippine education, vowing to expand internet connectivity in public schools, especially in remote and underserved areas. President Marcos made the pronouncement during his visit to the Flora A. Ilagan High School in Diliman, Quezon City to lead the school connectivity drive of the Department of Education or DepEd and the Department of Information and Communications Technology or DICT. The initiative aims to bridge the digital divide in public schools, particularly those in underserved areas, by strengthening internet connectivity, enhancing digital infrastructure, and expanding access to technology. During his visit, the President entered a grade 11 classroom and interacted with students, followed by a virtual dialogue with educators and learners from such geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas or GIDAs as Batanes, Marinduque, Cebu, Tawi-Tawi, Surigao del Norte, Agusan del Norte, and Apayao. During a teleconference with teachers and school officials, President Marcos said schools need to be connected and it is good that more schools are getting connected. The teachers expressed their gratitude for the new connectivity and electricity projects, which they said would allow students to conduct research and attend classes virtually even during typhoons and other disruptions. Agusan del Norte Governor Angel Amante added that better internet and electricity have inspired learners to attend classes regularly.
Kailangan na natin ngayon kailangan connected, lalong-lalo ng mga school. At kaya't mabuti at nakakaroon ng dumadami na yung mga school natin na connected na. Kaya papagpatuloy natin yung programang yan. Alright, pararamihin pa natin ito, especially GIDA areas. Dahil sa geographically isolated and underserved areas. Mabuti naman at natutuwa kami na hindi lamang ang mga estudyante at saka eskwelahan ang nasiservisyohan at nagagamit din yung wifi natin sa ibang bagay. Maraming salamat. Sige, pagpatuloy natin yung programa at malaking maitutulong sa pagturo itong ating internet connection.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Thursday, Malacañang said the ongoing war between Israel and Iran has no impact on the remittances of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs to the Philippines. Citing the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA statement, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the impact of the conflict on overseas remittances is limited for now. Castro noted that the money sent home by OFWs from Israel and Iran amounted to $106.4 million in 2024, just 0.03% of total remittances. OFW remittances reached $2.66 billion in April 2025, up 4% from $2.56 billion in April 2024, data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP showed. Castro acknowledged that the tensions in the Middle East could trigger an increase in crude oil prices and household consumption. She said the conflict could also affect economic growth prospects. In an interview in Quezon City on Wednesday, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said the government is ready to repatriate displaced Filipinos from the two Middle East nations and provide assistance to those who will be affected by the spike in oil prices.
Nakausap po natin si Yusek Alu ng DOF at sinasabi po niya sa ngayon po ay wala pa pong impact na ganon sa OFW remittances. Ang sabi po niya, and I quote, "The impact on remittances remains limited for now. Given the remittances from Israel and Iran amounted to $106.4 million in 2024, 0.03% of total remittances. However, an escalation that could include the rest of the Middle East will have a substantial effect on overall remittances." Ayon sa kanya po, malamang po talaga ay magkakaroon ng pagtaas sa presyo ng krudo at maapektuhan mas malamang ang household consumption at ang economy growth prospect. Yun po ang sasabi niya. Dahil kadalasan po kapag tumataas ang presyo ng krudo, tumataas din po ang bilihin sa merkado.
Thank you.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news Thursday, the Philippine government is stepping up its repatriation efforts amid an increasing number of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs affected by the escalating Israel-Iran conflict who want to return home. In a press briefing, Department of Migrant Workers or DMW Secretary Leo Magpayo reported that 178 OFWs in Israel have formally signified their intention to return, a sharp increase from 85 just days after the recent Iranian missile strikes. Kakdak said the government is now preparing the first batch for repatriation. However, he declined to give the operational details for security reasons. Secretary Kakdak explained that since Israel is under Alert Level 2, the government remains in voluntary repatriation mode and that no mandatory repatriation order has been issued yet. However, he said, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has instructed concerned agencies to be on full alert and mobilize resources to support all affected Filipinos. The DMW, in partnership with the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA, has already facilitated the return of nearly 4,000 OFWs since the start of hostilities in October 2023, with about 2,000 each from Israel and Lebanon. Financial aid, shelter, and medical support are being provided to displaced workers, many of whom are caregivers whose homes were damaged or destroyed in the conflict.
And indeed, the President has given a directive to start mobilizing our resources to undertake repatriation of Filipino nationals, of OFWs, in partnership with the DFA, who want to come home. As you know, we are still in voluntary repatriation mode. Okay? Hindi pa itong panahon ng mandatory repatriation, so we pretty much call on our workers to avail of our repatriation services, which has been going on anyway, di ba? Since October 7, 2023, kaya halos 2,000 na yung napauwi natin mula sa Israel sa Israel lang. Sa Lebanon, another equal number, mga 2,000. So almost 4,000 na yung napauwi natin between Israel and Lebanon. Today, it stands at 178 who have requested for repatriation. And we are processing their documents. 28 are travel ready. So we are set to mobilize, and the President has given clear and strong instructions for us to be at the front and oversee look over hindi overlook, iba yun. To look over to supervise the repatriation effort together with the DFA. That is why myself and Assistant Secretary Benny Legaspi and another officer will travel to Beirut tomorrow and onward to Amman, Jordan.
Department of Migrant Workers Secretary Leo Magpayo.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang announced on Thursday that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has retained at least 6 government heads but weeded out 3 officials, including his 2 presidential advisors. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the President had decided to keep Government Service Insurance System or GSIS President and General Manager Jose Arnulfo Veloso, Land Bank of the Philippines President and Chief Executive Officer or CEO Lynette Ortiz, and Development Bank of the Philippines President and CEO Michael De Jesus. Castro said National Irrigation Administration or NIA Administrator Eduardo Guillen also continues to enjoy President Marcos's trust after his courtesy resignation was declined. Other officials who will stay in government are Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office or PCSO General Manager Melquiades Robles and PhilHealth Acting President and CEO Edwin Mercado. However, the courtesy resignations of Presidential Legislative Liaison Office Head and Presidential Advisor on Legislative Affairs Mark Leandro Mendoza, Presidential Advisor on Military and Police Affairs Roman Felix, and PNOC Renewables Corporation President and CEO John J. Arenas were accepted.
Ipapabatid lang po natin kung sino pa po ang mga opisyales na na-retain at yung mga natanggap po ang courtesy resignation. Ang mga na-retain po, GSIS President and General Manager Jose Arnulfo Veloso. Land Bank of the Philippines President and CEO Lynette Ortiz. Development Bank of the Philippines President and CEO Michael De Jesus. National Irrigation Administration Administrator Eduardo Eddie G. Guillen. Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office General Manager Melquiades Robles. Philippine Health Insurance Corporation Acting President and CEO Edwin M. Mercado. Ang mga tinanggap naman po ang courtesy resignation, PLLO Presidential Advisor on Legislative Affairs Mark Leandro Mendoza. Presidential Advisor on Military and Police Affairs, Roman Felix. PNOC Renewables Corporation, President and CEO, John J. Arenas.
Earlier said the ongoing performance review could lead to firings or legal action depending on the findings. The chief executive is eyeing a quarterly assessment of the government officials' performance as part of his efforts to recalibrate his administration.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Philippines Department of Transportation or DOTR on Thursday announced that all students will enjoy a 50% discount when traveling using the Metro Rail Transit Line 3 or MRT3 and the Light Rail Transit or LRT Lines 1 and 2 starting Friday, June 20th. This is upon the directive of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to lighten students' burden by cheaper fares. The 50% student discount is also applicable to students that are enrolled in postgraduate studies and can be used daily, even weekends and holidays. Students are required to present their valid IDs within the current school year, and tickets should be bought at the ticket counter of the train station. The discount is valid only for single journey ticket and not applicable for beep cards or stored value cards. Meanwhile, the DOTR on Thursday directed the North Luzon Expressway or NLEX Corporation to immediately suspend the collection of toll fees along the Marilao northbound segment after the Marilao Interchange Bridge was struck again by an overhyped container truck on Wednesday. In a statement, the DOTR said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has instructed the DOTR and the Toll Regulatory Board, or TRB, to ensure that motorists and commuters who will use the affected expressway will be compensated for the lost time and exhaustion due to traffic caused by the incident. It said the toll holiday should remain in effect until all 4 lanes of the affected segment become passable. The DOTR also asked the NLEX Corporation to extend necessary assistance to the family of the person who died and other injured individuals who were hit by a bridge girder. A girder from the bridge fell and hit the vehicle behind the truck, resulting in the death of a 54-year-old passenger and injuries of 6 others, including a 2-year-old child. In addition, it ordered the NLEX Corporation to explain the seemingly lack of oversight that led to the incident after a similar incident happened barely 3 months ago. The NLEX Corporation was directed to submit a written explanation within 3 working days upon receipt of the notice to explain why the DOTR should not impose administrative sanctions, including possible suspension or modification of their toll collection privileges for non-compliance with safety obligations.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.